Super fluffy. This is perfect. Now what makes every bread perfect is the combination of super fluffiness and the crisp crust. The combination of the different textures paired with amazing taste is bread perfection. Then something really crazy happened. I visited my Russian friend and I started to play a little bit with his Matryoshka dolls. Those are dolls nested inside of dolls. Being crazy about bread, this got me thinking, what if I could nest a bread inside of another bread? A Matryoshka bread, a turbreadin, a breadception. I couldn't sleep anymore. I had to try this. And this turned out to be a super fun and surprising experiment. Please see for yourself. I'm adding 800 grams of bread flour, 200 grams of whole wheat flour, 20 grams of salt, around 700 grams of water. On top of that, I'm going to be adding 100 grams of super ripe sourdough starter. Now it's super ripe because I've been lazy and I didn't feed it for some time. For this bread I want to have an army of yeast that helps me leavening the dough. That's because with sourdough in my current kitchen it takes around 10 hours for my dough to be finished. Now for this super awesome Matryoshka bread. Okay, sorry, I need to get something out of the way. Ein kleiner Abstecher. A small turnaround? We Germans have strange sayings. You all know that me being a German, I sometimes struggle with English pronunciation. Well, I struggle a lot. And so I'm feeling really insecure trying to pronounce Matryoshka. The only logical thing for me was to reach out to my good friend Sergey and ask him how to pronounce it.
Yo Sergey, what's up? How do you pronounce a Matryoshka? Is that correct? What's the proper pronunciation?
It is Matryoshka. Yeah. Y-N-O. Yeah.
Thank you, Sergey. So now try saying it yourself. Matryoshka, Matryoshka. Please rate my Russian skills from 1 to 7. Don't we all hate people who use annoying rating scales? Also really annoying are people who write the best review and then just give 1 star. Not sure if you ever noticed, but I find that super annoying. Anyways, okay. Back to the dough. With 10 hours each for 5 layers, that would be around 50 hours. That sounds like a little bit too much. That's why I'm going to be combining sourdough with yeast. The sourdough is there for the taste and the yeast is going to do the majority of the leavening work. So for yeast, I'm adding around 1% of the flour, which is 10 grams of dry yeast. You could also replace that with 3 times the amount of fresh yeast. Both are the same organisms. Now I've been using a little bit less, only 7 grams of dry yeast. That's because I'm super frustrated when there are half-filled packages lying around. By changing the quantity of yeast that you use, you can simply adjust the speed at which your dough is going to ferment. Look, I'm so sorry, I just wanted to make one video where I don't go too much in detail about science and bread baking. But here I go again. Because I wanted everything to be faster, I resorted to a cool little hack. That's barley malt, and that's active barley malt. That means there are some enzymes inside which help breaking down the flour. They convert the starch into easier digestible sugars, which means you'll have better browning in the oven. Furthermore, they accelerate the gluten breakdown, which means you'll have a softer bread in the end. If you don't have that, don't worry. You could also simply let your dough sit for a few hours at room temperature, without the yeast and without the sourdough. Just flour and water, letting that sit, that would do exactly the same thing. This is just additional rocket fuel. And seriously, SpaceX should put that into the rockets, as I realized later.
Nice.
I'm going to be using 20 grams of this active malt. And now we're going to be adding some dough strength, which pretty much just means kneading. You could also be using a stand mixer. I want to make sure that this dough has a good amount of strength because I want it to hold its shape. I don't want it to turn out like a flat pancake. So yeah, I gotta knead for quite a little bit. So the dough is looking great now. This was a lot of kneading. Nice window pane test here. You see the dough has developed a nice gluten network. This is gonna make me the perfect dough. Nice smooth dough ball. I'm not gonna wait until this roughly increases 50 to 100% in size. Check this out, how much the dough already increased in size. I have to be careful now because we might be depleting all the food for the yeast and the sourdough. So I'm gonna be, oops. I'm gonna be taking this out now. I'm just rounding this up one more time. And then I'm gonna be placing this here inside of this container, and it's gonna go in the fridge for a little bit just because I have another appointment where I have to go to. Just returned, and we do have a little bit of a matryoshka emergency. This dough has just increased too much in size. Okay, so time to take this out. This also has cooled down nicely, which is exactly what I wanted, just to slow down the fermentation a little bit. I'm just gonna start cutting the first piece of the dough now, and that's gonna be our first matryoshka bread. Just rounding this up one more time. Okay, so that was just the pre-shaping, but we still need to give it the final shape. Normally I would be using a banneton like this, in which I let the dough proof, but this is a very tiny, cute little dough, so I'm not gonna be using that. I'll be using this small bowl. And by the way, this is also a great hack. You really don't have to buy a banneton like this. You can do everything with a small bowl like this. First, let's give this its final shape. Rub it with some flour, then just from the outside to the inside, tuck in the dough. This gives this a really nice amount of dough strength. Rub this with some additional flour, and then this goes into its bed. Some more flour so it doesn't stick, and then let's close this. And once the finger poke test passes, which is when this springs back relatively slowly, then we are ready to bake this. So I'm not so satisfied right now with how long it takes for the dough balls to proof. This has been almost 30 minutes. And to make things faster, to improve my production chain, I'm already going to be pre-shaping the tiny matryoshkas. And then I'll just store them in the fridge and let them sit there. I'm hoping this way I can just increase the production speed. So I'm already starting. This is gonna be Matryoshka 2, Matryoshka 3, Matryoshka 4, and then this will be the final one. So we are gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna be rounding those up nicely, just like that. Pop a few of the bubbles because there are just too many bubbles. This is what bakers always do. This is called pre-shaping. Now I will be placing them on this rack for my fridge. I'm just oiling it a little bit because I don't want the dough to stick too much. Number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So yeah, this happens if you over pre-shape a little bit, but this is really nothing to worry. Just to make sure that they don't dry out, I'm gonna be placing this nice kitchen towel here on top, which I wetted. Now they go back to the fridge. See you later. I sprinkled the dough with a little bit of semolina flour and I placed it in the hot Dutch oven. Cute little scoring. And let's bake this now. So yeah, I have no idea for how long this should bake, but I'm gonna be trying 10 minutes. After around 10 minutes. Look at this, it tried to explode. I'm just gonna let it get a little bit darker, and then we're ready for the next stage. And check this out. Wow, it's so light. Our first cute little bun, and it really tried to explode here. I think this is also a sign that it probably didn't proof enough. It could have proofed for a little bit longer, but with the situation now in the fridge and the dough's already proofing in their shape, I think that's gonna be much, much better. So let's wrap this in the next dough. this dough is really looking great. I'm just going to elongate this dough for a little bit. Okay, now I need to think. Yeah, I need to stretch it for a little more. Just like that. This is going to be awesome. Now we will just let this proof for another 30 minutes or so. And then this is ready to be baked again. Okay, around 30 minutes passed. Look at this. Oh, it increased so much in size. I think that's because the other bread was still a little bit warm. Okay, lesson learned for iteration 3. Let's bake this first. I didn't like the scoring pattern so much last time, so I'm gonna keep it a little simpler. And I'm just gonna put a little X in here. Oh no, this seems to be already the other bread right there. Okay, so also something to know for the next time. Anyways, let's bake this for, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. I'm gonna double check. I'm also just going to give it a little bit of extra steam. So on iteration 2, I noticed that the bread was just proofing way faster, and that can be explained by the other hot bread inside. So I need to keep that in mind for the next time. Also, what I didn't like so much was how thin the layer near the top of the bread was. So I need to somehow shape it differently, that I have a little bit of a bigger chunk of dough near the top center. And I also just realized that I forgot to add semolina flour. Yeah, let's hope for the best and keep making additional layers. It just smells so good. Let's see what's hiding inside. And it's already quite crispy. Wow, it baked so much faster. Very, very, very interesting. I'm just gonna be placing this to the side to let it cool down for just a little bit. And I'm already going to take out the next dough. Matryoshka number 2. Okay, just let the dough cool down. It's still relatively warm. Readying the next layer. I'm just thinking that I probably should have just made it a little bit of a larger piece of dough. It's also hard to leave a little bit more in the center. It's like I'm making a little bit of a pizza. This is so satisfying, but it also feels so wrong at the same time. Give it a little bit of a rub with some flour. And then I'm placing it in the larger banneton. Just going to let this proof for 20 to 30 minutes, and then it's ready to be baked. Okay, around 15 minutes passed, and let's now put this beauty to the oven. Next layer incoming. And the next layer. I think it just needs a little bit of more crust now. It's not dark enough. So I'm just gonna finish baking this for a little bit longer until it's a little darker. And here we go. Shape-wise, I think we just need to improve this. I'm gonna do my best to make it look a little bit better next time. I'm just gonna let this cool down for a bit, and then let's continue with the next layer. 2 more to go. Bread has cooled down, and now let's add our layer number 4. So the strategy with the fridge works quite well, I would say. I'm just going to start stretching this a little bit, almost like a pizza. This will go right here. The shape is not gonna get a lot better, I guess. Oh no! Time to just stitch this together a little bit. Let's let this proof again. And then bake it. Okay. Next layer of matryoshka. You know what? I'm just gonna be trying this layer for the sake of science without doing any scoring. Let's see what's going to happen. Layer number 4 completed. Oh, look at this. This is just insane. And I actually do think not scoring it was a great idea. It's a little bit more symmetrical now. So I'm just gonna, I think the crust like this is already okay. I'm gonna let this cool down a bit and then we will apply the final layer of the matryoshka. I am so excited to finally taste this bread. The not scoring seems to have been great. We now have a much rounder bread and I'm gonna be applying the final layer soon. Seriously, my excitement is going through the roof. I'm so curious to see how the bread is going to look like once we slice it open. Could this possibly be the best, most crusty bread ever? Well, let's see. Okay, final layer incoming. And I have an idea. From the bottom, it's not really crisp yet. What if I just were to place the whole dough here on top? It would also allow me to just make it a little bit rounder. So I'm just going to be stretching this like a pizza dough. It's a little bit sticky, but with swift movements, I get it to not stick as much. Wondering if this is already large enough. Haha, nice. But I'm thinking this might be too large for the Dutch oven now. So I'm gonna be baking this on a stone. Amazing. Love it. Let's put this beauty in here. A little bit of flour and it's proofing time. I'm just going to be preheating the stone now. So time to apply the final layer. And just look at how fluffy this dough became. Just applying a little bit of semolina flour because I don't want this to stick now. I have created a monster. Okay, let's hope that we get a little bit of the dough opening. Just for the beauty, and I'm so excited to see the final bread. A little bit of a spritz. The bread is already too big, and normally I would place another tray on top to help with the steam. The steam would be trapped below that, but I can't, so I just have to bake it like this now. I really have no idea if this is gonna work. I'm just adding some additional water here for superb steam. This definitely helps with the bread rising in the oven. So steam has been removed, and without the steam we're getting that super crisp crust, exactly what we want. And I want to make sure that we get a super nice crust. I really love a crispy bread. And are you ready? This has got to be the biggest bread that I ever made. Oh, this is looking so beautiful. So let's slice this beauty open and check what's hiding inside. I just want to make sure that I hit the center. Are you ready for it? This is so awesome. I love it. And I mean, look at this. There is so much crust here everywhere. This bread has gotta taste amazing. Let's give it a shot and test how this actually tastes. First, I need to take a picture though. So one more time the layers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This could easily be the most awesome bread that I ever made. Okay, time to give this a shot and taste this bread. What the heck? Oh, I love it. This is amazing. Super crispness incoming. There is so much crispness to this. This is just insane. You just have so much crust. This tastes like amazing crust, but then here it's also not so crisp. So you have crust that's not so crisp. How awesome is that? Good news is I still have quite a lot to eat here. It has been so much fun to bake this bread. And seriously, the taste was also so much better than I expected. For people who love crust. So if you're that person, then you definitely want to try this bread. From a time perspective though, it probably took me a whole day to make this, so it's quite a big of a time investment. I would be very curious to hear your thoughts. What do you think could I improve? Where do you think I screwed up? Please share your thoughts in the comment section. That brings us to the end of this video. Hope you had fun and hope you learned something new. As always, may the gluten be with you.